That is, when two or more persons appear to maintain truth and convince the mistaken, but or remotely affect the question at hand, for other fervor, in courts of judicature, by lawyers, things, as there are persons, so when... Chapter 9 of Improvement of the Mind. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Improvement of the Mind by Isaac Watts and Stephen Norris Fellows. Of disputes in general. First, under the general head of conversation for the improvement of the mind, we may rank the practice of disputing. That is, when two or more persons appear to maintain different sentiments, and defend their own or oppose the other's opinion, in alternate discourse, by some methods of argument. Second, as these disputes often arise in good earnest, where the two contenders do really believe the different propositions which they support, so sometimes they are appointed as mere trials of skill, in academies or schools, by the students. Sometimes they are practices, and that with apparent fervor, in courts of judicature, by lawyers, in order to gain the fees of their different clients, while both sides, perhaps, are really of the same sentiment with regard to the cause which is tried. Third, in common conversation, disputes are often managed without any forms of regularity or order, and they turn to good or evil purposes, chiefly according to the temper of the disputants. They may sometimes be successful to search out truth, sometimes effectual to maintain truth and convince the mistaken, but at other times a dispute is a mere scene of battle in order to victory and vain triumph. Fourth, there are some few general rules which should be observed in all debates whatsoever, if we would find out truth by them, or convince a friend of his error, even though they may not be managed according to any settled forms of disputation. And as there are almost as many opinions and judgments of things as there are persons, so when several persons happen to meet and confer together upon any subject, they are ready to declare their different sentiments, and support them by such reasonings as they are capable of. This is called debating or disputing, as is above described. Fifth, when persons begin a debate, they should always take care that they are agreed in some general principles or propositions, which either more nearly or remotely affect the question at hand, for otherwise they have no foundation or hope of convincing each other. They must have some common ground to stand upon, while they maintain the contest. When they find they agree in some remote propositions, then let them search farther, and inquire how near they approach to each other's sentiments, and whatsoever propositions they agree in, let these lay a foundation for the mutual hope of conviction. Hereby you will be prevented from running at every turn to some original and remote propositions and axioms, which practice both entangles and prolongs dispute. As, for instance, if there was a debate proposed between a Protestant and a Papist, whether there be such a place as purgatory. Let them remember that they both agree in this point, that Christ has made satisfaction or atonement for sin, and upon this ground let them stand, while they search out the controverted doctrine of purgatory by way of conference or debate. Sixth, the question should be cleared from all doubtful terms and needless additions, and all things that belong to the question should be expressed in plain and intelligible language. This is so necessary a thing that without it men will be exposed to such sort of ridiculous contests as were found one day between the two unlearned combatants, Sartor and Sutor, who assaulted and defended the doctrine of transubstantiation with much zeal and violence. But Latino happening to come into their company, and inquiring the subject of their dispute, asked each of them what he meant by that long, hard word, transubstantiation. Sutor readily informed him that he understood, bowing at the name Jesus. But Sartor assured him that he meant nothing but bowing at the high altar. No wonder, then, said Latino, that you cannot agree when you neither understand one another, nor the word about which you contend. I think that the whole family of the Sartors and Sutors would be wiser if they avoided such kind of debates, till they understood the terms better. But, alas, even their wives carry on such conferences. The other day one was heard in the street explaining to her less learned neighbor the meaning of metaphysical science, and she assured her that as physics were medicines for the body, so metaphysics were physics for the soul. Upon this they went on to dispute the point, how far the divine excelled the doctor. Can it be faulty to repeat a dialogue that walked the street? Or can my gravest friends forbear a laugh when such disputes they hear? 7th. And not only the sense and meaning of the words used in the question should be settled and adjusted between the disputants, but the precise point of inquiry should be distinctly fixed. The question in debate should be limited precisely to its special extent, or declared to be taken in its more general sense. This sort of specification or limitation of the question hinders and prevents the disputants from wandering away from the precise point of inquiry. It is this trifling humor or dishonest artifice of changing the question and wandering away from the first point of debate which gives endless length to disputes and causes both disputants to part without any satisfaction. And one chief occasion of it is this: when one of the combatants feels his cause run low and fail, and is just ready to be confuted and demolished, he is tempted to step aside to avoid the blow, and betakes him to a different question. Thus, if his adversary be not well aware of him, he begins to entrench himself in a new fastness, and holds out the siege with a new artillery of thoughts and words. It is the pride of man which is the spring of this evil, and an unwillingness to yield up their own opinions, even to be overcome by truth itself. 8th. Keep this always, therefore, upon your mind as an everlasting rule of conduct in your debates to find out truth, that a resolute design, or even a warm affection of victory, is the bane of all real improvement, and an effectual bar against the admission of the truth which you profess to seek. This works with a secret, but powerful and mischievous influence in every dispute, unless we are much upon our guard. It appears in frequent conversation. Every age, every sex, and each party of mankind are so fond of being in the right that they know not how to renounce this unhappy prejudice, this vain love of victory. When truth with bright evidence is ready to break in upon a disputant, and to overcome his objections and mistakes, how swift and ready is the mind to engage wit and fancy, craft and subtlety, to cloud and perplex and puzzle the truth, if possible. How eager is he to throw in some impertinent question to divert from the main subject! How swift to take hold of some occasional word, and thereby to lead the discourse off from the point in hand! So much afraid is human nature of parting with its errors and being overcome by truth. Just thus a hunted hare calls up all the shifts that nature hath taught her. She treads back her mazes, crosses and confounds her former track, and uses all possible methods to divert the scent when she is in danger of being seized and taken. Let puss practice what nature teaches. But would one imagine that any rational being should take such pains to avoid truth and to escape the improvement of its understanding? 9th. When you come to dispute in order to find out truth, do not presume that you are certainly possessed of it beforehand. Enter the debate with a sincere design of yielding to reason, on which side soever it appears. Use no subtle arts to cloud and entangle the question. Hide not yourself in doubtful words and phrases. Do not affect little shifts and subterfuges to avoid the force of an argument. Take a generous pleasure to espy the first rising beams of truth, though it be on the side of your opponent. Endeavor to remove the little obscurities that hang about, and suffer and encourage it to break out into open and convincing light, that while your opponent perhaps may gain the better of your reasonings, yet you yourself may triumph over error. And I am sure that is a much more valuable acquisition and victory. 10th. Watch narrowly in every dispute that your opponent does not lead you unwarily to grant some principle of the proposition which will bring with it a fatal consequence, and lead you insensibly into his sentiment, though it be far astray from the truth, and by this wrong step you will be, as it